Thank you to all the listeners. Thank you to everyone who tunes in every week. This week I got Sammie Wood on the podcast. Sammie Wood's an old friend of mine, but a really unique perspective on what it means to be an elite female athlete, having an A-League career and then taking a break and then jumping straight into an elite rugby union career. So, yeah, awesome. Always awesome to chat with Sammie. I've had a chance to coach her, worked with her on that front, and yeah, great athlete, great human. But as we do every week, first thing we got to do, thank you to the cover.com.au. Make sure you head across there, give them a like, give them a follow, get on the newsletter, check out some of the other podcasts, Fifth and Dribble. They're a hybrid NBA, NRL podcast. The Daily Dribble, got a lot of dribblers. Daily Dribble podcast, NBL, NBA, and there's more coming. They're coming every week. Tobias Canning still doing his NRL column. So I got something going up next week. I'm a big fan of March Madness, the NCAA basketball tournament. So shouts to Paige Buckers today with the Yukon women's basketball team getting to the championship game. Louisville weren't so lucky. Haley Van Lith, shouts to you because I think you're an incredible basketballer. But yeah, couldn't get it done today. Right at the top of the show, I got two things for you. One, the WNBL is a joke of an organization. I guess, yeah. It's probably not the professional way to put it, but I guess that's where we'll start today. And I think I'll save the more in depth analysis of this for another podcast once I've sort of cooled down and the smoke settled and I can actually sort of processed it, researched it. But here's what I'll say: the WNBL broke their own rule. So the game 2 of the semi-final series against the Caps, and look, I am Caps biased. I work for the Caps. There's a few players on that team who I would consider friends. The coaching staff are my friends. Some people formerly in the front office. All still keep in contact with them. So I am Caps biased. But what I'll say is, if you go on the WNBL's website, the rule basically stated that if game 2 had to be postponed and it couldn't be a 3-game series, it would go to a 2-game series, and the score aggregate would decide, if Perth wins and the Caps win, or Team A and Team B, whatever, however you want to say it. Then, then the FIBA rules is that it's a home and away series, 2-game series. You get one go home game, you get one away game. But for some reason, the WNBL decided that they weren't going to go with the FIBA way of doing things, even though FIBA is the governing body for world basketball, and decided that the Caps were going to have to play in Perth and they were going to have to play a day after they were getting out of isolation. Now, I don't want to harp on this for too long, and I don't want to put an asterisk next to Perth being in the final, because I think they were a fantastic team all year. They did a really good job, but the WNBL didn't give the Caps a chance, and they broke their own rule. And then they released a statement, which didn't address that at all. Then some of the information in the statement changed after it was released. Like, it's just wild. And then a journalist in Perth had the goal to go after one of the Caps, even though that's like, she didn't do anything wrong. And the league's done nothing. The league has done nothing to step in and protect that player. So you can obviously see I'm pretty hot about it. So that's where I'm going to leave it. But from a governance perspective, it's fucking ridiculous. It's a joke. You can't just make things up. You've got rules and protocols, and you deviated from them for what? It doesn't make any sense. Now, but I do have to say that you guys have form for this, because I've been privy to a lot of decisions that you've made over the last 4 seasons that I've been involved with. And yes, you have form for this. You deviate from your own protocols all the time, and then you hide behind, one example, the former head of the league made a decision, then turned her phone off. So look, yeah, that's what I'm going to say. I'm frustrated for the players. I'm frustrated for the coaching staff. I'm frustrated for the organization. And it sets a really ridiculous precedent. So if let's say game 1 in Melbourne has to be postponed or canned completely because a number of the Boomers players or the Perth players get COVID. Does that mean both games now have to be played in Melbourne because Melbourne were the higher seed? Even though Perth's already sold out game 2 in Perth? Look, my recommendation to the league is that you need to front the media this week, ASAP. Just get in front of the media and be like, yeah, we fucked up. Soz, ask your questions. Second thing I got for you is last week I heard Matt Tamua sort of make an appeal to the crowds, spark up, effectively saying spark up crowd. Now, I know that rugby has a problem with that, but that problem to me is fairly simply solved. So you, Matt Tamua, are saying you want more people in the stands, but what are you doing about that? When was the last time, are you an active member of your community? And I don't mean going to the fucking club rugby game that the Rebels make you go to. I mean, are you a member of your community? Are you going down to the locals farmers market and supporting those guys? Are you shopping at local shops? Are you volunteering at schools? And not those damn stupid clinics that everyone hates, not the clinics that the state body is making you go to, but actually going down to your kid's school and work in the canteen. Are you volunteering at a junior rugby club? Are you coaching one of your kids' teams in your spare time? Because I know you've got a lot of it. Are you active down at universities? Are you donating your time to charities and not-for-profits in your community to help make it better? Because if you are, we don't see it. And unless you're doing that, you don't have the right to tell the crowd to spark up. Because you're not invested in the community, so why would the community invest in you? That's where I'm going to leave that. Matt, I know you, I like you, but it's an incredibly dumb thing to say. You should know better. If your team was, if every member of your team was active in the community, I can promise you'd have people at the game. We've got the same problem here in Canberra. The Brumbies players, the men, the women get it. The men think that just going and watching a club footy game and sending some academy players down to a local school to run a clinic is being involved in the community. I'll give you an example. Kelsey Griffin teaches at Radford College. The captain of the Caps teaches at Radford College and runs the basketball program at Radford College. Abby Cabillo works in childcare, is a university student. She's going to be a physio, so she's going to work as a physio in the community. She also volunteers her time for a number of Indigenous and First Nations people's charities. So that's why there's bums in seats at the Caps game. So I put the challenge back to you, Matt. What are you doing to engage the crowd? What are you doing to engage the community? All right. Up next, Sammie Wood. Sammie Wood, former A-League soccer player or football player is probably the correct term. Current Super W athlete, former Aon Uni7s athlete, current school teacher.
Yep.
How you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm well. And I really appreciate your time tonight. I know you're busy in lockdown.
Oh, yeah. I was a bit lost what to do, so I thought, I'll just contact you. Thought we'd hang out.
Hang out and have a yarn. No, look, I wanted to have you on this podcast for you. You have a really unique perspective on what it means to be a female athlete, given, when the A-League started, when you were coming through, it was professional adjacent is probably the right word to say. It was kind of sort of slapped together, and, it had a lot of success, but you guys weren't getting paid, but you're expected to behave, the same way that a professional would. The training load was exactly the same, just without the compensation. And then you sort of left that, and then unfortunately have come into rugby at
Yeah.
exactly and rugby is in exactly the same spot that the A-League was in, 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
yeah, I really wanted to get you on and kind of get your perspective on that, because it to me it's pretty fascinating. And I guess my first question is, why?
I don't know. I mean, I've thought this same thing in my head many times, and I think my parents have too, to be honest. But I mean, I started soccer when such a young age. I think I started when I was about 10, and by the age of 15, I was living in Sydney for N-Swiss and training alongside the Matildas and things like that. And knowing it now, it was such a big thing, but back then I was just like, oh, I hate training, sort of thing. Like, we never used to play and stuff like that, and it was just all for the love of it. And I guess at the bottom of the line, that's what it comes down to, whether it be football, I mean, whatever code of football, really. So yeah, soccer was always there because I was never allowed to play league or union because there was no pathway for girls past 12. So soccer was it, and then yeah, went from there.
Well, and that is hard. Like, there's a saying, the person who loves walking will walk further than the person who loves the destination. So,
Yeah.
and I appreciate, and rugby's in the same spot now, where you have these programs, and some of them are state state institutes. So like an N-Swiss, you got QAS. We had the ACTAS
Actors. Yeah.
program. So you've got these year-round programs, but you don't actually get any opportunities to play as an ACTAS group or as a QAS group. QAS are doing a better job of that now, but and then even at the state level with the state bodies, the Waratahs have got a full-time program, the Brumbies have got an academy program. So there's a lot of training and not a lot of opportunities to play because the season is so condensed.
Yeah. And I think with the female competitions as well, whatever level they're at, is they're always shortened anyway. Like,
Yeah.
I know that comes down to, funding and stuff like that. But, you've got such a small window to perform. And I mean, I remember when I was first starting the W League, I was like, I think I was 17 when I made my debut with Newcastle Jets, and I wasn't getting paid and everything. He goes, but I didn't know the difference.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know if other people were, or if I was the only one not doing it, because at the end of the day, it was all for the love of
Yeah.
the game. So yeah, it wasn't until I then went to Canberra United in 2012 and got, a very small payment for playing. And, for me, that was massive because I'd never been paid before. So, but yeah.
But isn't it a trip though? Like, when you go from, doing, playing sport, you play sport for nothing your whole life, and then all of a sudden someone rolls up with a check or with a contract with money attached to it. Like, it's crazy. Because
Yeah.
I remember when it happened to me, and I was sitting there and I was like, I'll do this for free. Like, I'm not going to tell this dude that, but I would do it for
Yeah.
free.
Yeah. I had my first ever paid game or paid season when I first came to Canberra, and I played for a local Canberra club, and they gave us payment from someone in the club. So that was massive for me, because I was like, I do this for free, sort of thing. So I kind of felt bad, but then I found out more people are on more money, so I was like, I don't feel so bad now. So,
I've got all these stories, mates of mine, playing overseas for sort of lower division clubs, and often, there was like a retainer and then a match fee and a win fee. and often it'd be like the club president or the whoever was sort of the big dog at the club would roll around after the game with the paychecks in an envelope. And if you didn't win, be handing it over and being like, "Yeah, I probably shouldn't give you this, but there you go." Like, like dance,
Yeah. You're
dance,
just like,
monkey.
oh, yep. You got to just wait there and sit, hope for the best, whatever's.
Yeah.
It's always a surprise, though, when you open the envelope. So,
Do you see a lot of similarities between where rugby's at now and where the A League was? Sort of, what are we're talking like 12, 13 years ago, aren't we? The first
yeah. I mean,
A League season.
the very first A League season, I was 17.
Yeah.
So, I'm now 30. So, what's
So
that?
13
13
years.
years ago. Yeah. And I mean, the jump was huge from when I went Newcastle. I can't remember what year it was. It must have been 2009,
Yeah,
I
somewhere
think, or
there.
to end of 2008 and 2009,
Yeah.
because I remember I had my accident,
Yep.
which the world knows because of the media. But um, yeah, so the jump from '09 to even 2012 when I played for Canberra United, just the professionalism was so much bigger. You could see it in the strips, in the team resources and things available to the women. There was still a massive gap, but even now, seeing and I'm still in touch with a few of the girls like Michelle Haymond
Mm.
and things like that, because I can see that they're succeeding and getting paid and stuff. But at the end of the day, I think it's more about you know their connections they make with businesses and things like that. It's that marketing and stuff, because they've got the time, because they're getting paid to play and stuff like that. But with rugby, it's still such a not underdeveloped in that way, but we're still fighting for you know two training shirts, let alone this. Like, I had to go to a media thing the other day and my shorts were still wet because I'd washed them from training the night before and I forgot to hang them out, and I was like, oh well, at least they're clean. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of similarities from like where rugby is right now in 2022 compared to what soccer was at 2012.
Yeah, and it's such a it's just such a shame in a way. Like, rugby is a long way behind all the other sports now, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating a little bit from someone who's been involved sort of at the ground level. Like, rugby had the competitive advantage. Rugby was sort of first to go to market with the Aon Uni7s series, and then off the back of the success of that, launched Super W. So
Yep.
both of those competitions were a year before AFLW and 2 years before NRLW. And
Yeah.
now, in year, what is it, year five or year five of
Yeah.
Super W, NRLW and AFLW have both sort of overtaken, both in professionalism, in the resources, as you spoke about, resourcing available. NRLW players now are going to get a decent wage for their commitment. They're going to get their private health care, which is
Yep.
like which is like, so,
That's goals.
yeah. Like, so, it seems like a little thing, but it's like, oh, like, I have private health care. I have a family, a little boy, so we have private health care because
Yeah.
just in case. But when you're a poor student and you got to pay for that yourself. You're trying to manage a training load, a part-time job, uni, and every dollar matters. Having someone else pay for your private healthcare is massive.
It was huge, and I am entirely grateful for my mum and dad for however long they paid it for me for, because I was a little menace. I did motocross, everything else, so they were like, we have to have it. So you know, yeah, take my hat off to them. But yeah, just your private health, like, you can't take the field without it.
Yeah,
And like, at the end of the day, for me, it's a no-brainer. You have it. In the past with medical conditions and stuff like that, you're just like, it's worth it. At the end of the day, don't ask me that every month when I have to pay for it. But yeah, it's got its positives, that's for sure.
but it is, physio. You need but off-season physio, massage,
Yep.
acupuncture. It even has benefits. It has obvious benefits when you get to the hospital, all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is really important to have, but it it is a huge cost. For some people, mine costs a lot because we have a family. But for someone at uni, $70 a month or $100 a month, $50 a month, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I definitely struggled when I was doing Canberra United, and I was only a student then, and just working part time here and there at Rebel Sport, and you know, you have to go to work to pay for private health. So then I was sad that I didn't have the coolest kicks when we went to training and stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely tricky to juggle it all, and yeah, but I do see the growth. But yeah, I agree that rugby's definitely behind the other ones now.
Yeah, and as you said, it's hard when you're managing, balancing all of that to then make those meaningful connections with local businesses or local media members or the people who can ultimately help you, one, build a platform for you and your sport, but two, introduce you to the right people and take you to the right events and that sort of thing to gain support that way. And then the big one is that you can't focus on your performance.
Yeah,
You're trying to find time to go to the gym, you're trying to find time to get onto the field. You're trying to find time to meet with your coach because your coach is generally a volunteer or paid very little too. So you're trying to
yep,
find time with them to meet with them and get your feedback and that kind of thing. So yeah, it makes it really tough. And I think if you look at teams and leagues in Australia now, the Australian cricket women's cricket team is probably a really good example. As soon as they got made professional, their performances were ballistic. Like they were already really good. Now they're
yeah,
almost untouchable
yeah,
purely because
and
they can focus on playing.
that's what it comes down to because if you take away all the the stresses and things like that and you just eliminate all of or not eliminate but you focus on the things like playing and gameplay and all of that, you just kind of everything just flows easier.
Mm.
Like I know this season I was struggling with my workload and trying to get on top of huddle and watching that game analysis and things like that because it was either I have to sacrifice 2 hours of work time to watch the game analysis or I lose the game analysis and then I'm not on top of things. So yeah, it's always hard to have that balance, and I take my hat off to people that do it with kids, that's for sure.
Well, and that's the other thing we're seeing more and more. More and more organizations bring in policies and things to make sure that people with kids are supported. You look at the WNBL, who I've got some issues with for another reason at the moment, but you know, one of the things I sort of tip my hat to them about is they do have a policy now where if a player on your team has a child, then the league will actually pay for that child to travel with the team and provide accommodation for the child and also a support person as well. So whether that's your mum or your partner
Yeah,
or whoever to make sure that baby's looked after. And then then there's a maternity leave aspect as well. So they're supporting
yeah,
athletes under contract, who do get pregnant and decide to have a family to give them that pathway back into the sport.
yeah.
But yeah, as you say, to in rugby in particular, to be managing all of the other things plus a small child.
Yeah, like I take my hat off. I know a girl I used to play soccer with, Katrina Gorry, who's mini in the Matildas.
Yep.
She's just had Harper. Well, not just had a Harper. She'd be nearly one now. But yeah, I don't know much about it. But just seeing how much Brisbane Raw
Mm.
support her, and Harper is there with her every single step of the way. On the travel with the team's like taking Harper in as a little sister to them all, I guess. But yeah, there's definitely I take my hat off to people.
Yeah. Do you think? Do you think rugby? Obviously being someone who's amongst it at the moment, do you think rugby can get there? Like, can you see, from your seat, I guess not light at the end of a tunnel, but progress towards professional contracts, full time players, that sort of thing?
I mean, yeah, it comes down to just getting it out there with the media and stuff like that. And I guess, you know, I've seen soccer do it, and
Mm.
I have the same belief that rugby can get there. I just think it's going to take a lot more females in that chair to help with that progression of where it should grow in what certain ways.
Mm.
Yeah, and just having that feedback and like transparency from top to bottom as well, because at the end of the day, we're all there for the love of it, but we need to have understanding from where I stand to where, you know, the CEO and stuff stands, because we're sacrificing just as much as what, you know, the people that are getting paid to do.
Mm.
If not, we're doing more. So, especially
Yeah.
getting up at gym and then going to work.
Those early
I've done.
morning gym sessions.
Oh, I mean, it was great when I was a uni student because I could choose when all my
Yeah.
classes were, but now I've got to be at work and make the classes for all the kids. So
It's like it's hard for me to reconcile. Like I have to work every day. Like I have to get up, and now I get up at an ungodly hour because that's just what babies do.
yeah,
And you know, we get him ready. He has his breakfast and he has his little playtime, and then after he's sorted, takes a couple hours. Then I get in the car and I go to work, or you know, at the company I work for at the moment is pretty good. Like I can work from home a lot, but the thought that I just like I have to go to work every day is really difficult for me to reconcile. Even in my 30s, it's like what? Like how did I get here?
well, I mean, mate, I've now joined the 30s and I feel the same way. I said to my partner the other day, I said, my super's not very great. And I'm like, oh, I guess it will be in 30 years. And I went, I've still got 30 years of working.
Yeah, it's just
So,
it's just wild. Like yeah, just
yeah,
I guess just that idea that and you know like having a child has it's been a huge change in perspective for me. You know, I think prior to having him, I lived a fairly selfish life, and you know, like it's only I'm only really able to see that now. Like you know, the first part of my life was all about you know trying to make it as an athlete, and
yeah,
you know, I sacrificed a lot to try and achieve that. And in some ways, like isolated myself from a lot of people because you know I was always busy chasing that dream. Then I retire, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna be a coach.
well, I got to stay in the sport and give everything else, but not play.
Yeah, and then you know, luckily my partner Kat stayed with me through all of that, and then we have a baby, and I'm like, every decision I make now impacts him directly.
Yeah,
And every you know everything I do has a direct flow on for him. And then you know then take a step further back, it's like, well, like every decision I made already up to this point had an impact on my partner. So like
mm,
so it was a complete shift in mindset. And then all of a sudden I went from you know I want to be a coach and I want to do this, I want to travel, and so it was like, okay, well now I just need to make more money,
yeah,
need to look after him, you know, make sure that's all sweet. But like, you know, reconciling that, you know, with the thought of having to go to work every day is still very difficult for me.
yeah. I mean, speaking with on that, I mean, I don't have a baby, maybe one day down the future, but like I haven't even been able to like save properly to have a house mortgage and stuff. So like I've been, you know, trying to buy a house for the past however many years, and like now like it's always been in my head, well, I have to go to work to, you know, to pay for this, but I was like if I get injured with football or things like that, I miss out on work. So it's just another, you know, stress that happens
Mm.
with it. So
And I think
yeah,
that's the, you know, that's the side of it that a lot of people don't see. So I think people are getting, and you know, shouts to what Chloe Dalton's doing with the Female Athlete Project,
yeah,
and you know, people like Alana Ferguson and Ros Kelly and those guys in the media, you know, they're really working really hard and really effectively at shining a light on some of the stories that sort of come out. So I think people understand now the sacrifices you guys are making from a time perspective, but then it's the stuff that happens outside of football. You know, as you say, you get injured, you miss work, you know, you dip into that savings account. It puts you, you know, financially back, you know, maybe another couple of years because you can't afford that house that you
yeah,
want, you know. So there's all of that flowing too, and then even the, you know, most most female athletes that I know that went to uni, it took them 5 or 6 years, sometimes longer, to get through because they were only taking one or two subjects at a time because they had to manage work, they had to manage training. So, you finish your uni at 25, 26. Yeah, you might be one of the best female rugby athletes in Australia, but that's not your career because you're not getting paid for that. So you get into the workforce 4 or 5 years after everyone else, and you're at a disadvantage. You got to you take less money, and sometimes you're taking orders from someone who's younger than you.
Literally. That's what's happening at the moment. I was just like, these guys are younger than me. Like, I'm listening and obeying them, but I can't get myself into, a routine to keep my money under situation or under control. But, yeah, shout out to my partner, Chloe. She's just, she has been the one that, has put everything kind of into perspective, because in the past, I know that I've had partners that, thought they did that and they may have not have done that, and things like that. But, she's always just allowed me to focus on that. And then when it comes to bills and everything else, well, we're able to just work through it when it comes at us. And she's taught me to, live in the present moment right now, instead of having to worry about down the track, or how am I going to pay for that? How am I going to do that? How am I going to, I couldn't plan anything because of football. We didn't know when the draw was going to come out. We didn't do anything. So yeah, that impact that you have on others, you've kind of just shown that light to me as well. So
Well, it's nothing if not an educational podcast, I guess.
yeah, I mean, I am in isolation. Who says I can't learn in isolation?
But and I think that's the other rub of the coin is to be an athlete, and I think to be successful in anything, you do have to have an element of selfishness.
Yeah,
And you know it's my partner's been amazing through all of my life's transitions. And I've had more than I would like, but she has always been the one to provide the perspective and the support. And sometimes I think we do always get caught up in what's on the horizon, what's coming, and we forget to enjoy what's happening right now. We forget to enjoy the journey. We forget to to use a football analogy, we forget to play what's in front of us
yeah,
versus what we
exactly.
think is coming.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think particularly in where women's footy is at the moment, the support of a really strong partner is key. Um,
yeah,
because there are so many ups and downs as an athlete. There's injuries, there's losses, there's all kinds of stuff. And if you've got someone at home that can, you know, look you in the eyes and kind of pull you out of that weird headspace that you're in, it's invaluable. And I don't think they get enough credit. And
yeah,
certainly from a coach's perspective, um, coaches spend a lot of time worrying about everyone else, making sure the athletes are good, making sure their coaching staff are good, and then sometimes things go awry, and ultimately the buck stops with you, and that's the burden you bear as a coach. Um, and so then to have someone at home who's sort of able to rationalize that for you in your head is invaluable. It has been to me anyway.
yeah. I mean, I believe this season, I had a great preseason, and was training really well and did really well, I believe, in the trial games and stuff like that. And I seriously put it down to how, Chloe has helped me change my mindset. And I did a bit of work with a guy called David King through our Brumbies camp and stuff like that. And it's really, if I'd have known this stuff when I was playing soccer, I think it would have been a lot different for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really about networking and having them connections and networks, like I said, with those people, them key people.
Well,
And
and it's
yeah.
it's interesting you mention it because I catch up fairly regularly with a former teammate of yours, Lydia Williams.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
let's.
and she mentioned the same thing in that that next step. So you can have your skills. Your skills can be silky. your fitness can be awesome, your strength and conditioning and all of that can be top notch. But then if you don't have the mental aspect, if you don't understand, how to get yourself mentally ready and again, how to play what's in front of you,
There we go.
it's really impossible to perform at your peak. It doesn't matter how good your prep is. It doesn't matter how good your skills are. If you don't have the mental aspect of the game, it's going to be really hard to get yourself up and when you make a mistake, move on and sort of move to the next thing. Yeah, and it's just interesting because she basically made the same comment from earlier in her career. She's now got access to some of that. But it seems to be a really underutilized and underinvested in and undervalued part of high performance sport is that mental part of the game.
Yeah, I didn't realize how impactable, is that a word, how much impact that can actually have.
Yeah.
Like I always thought I had really good like mental health when it comes to team selections and things like that. And I did with soccer, it was fine. Like I was just like, yep, I'll always go back to you know prove them wrong and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just been really highlighted this past season that I've done with how important that holds in my mind as well. And yeah, if only I knew that, what, 17 years ago now.
But
Older and wiser, isn't that
yeah,
the saying?
but it's an area that we invested in last year with our sevens program. So we worked with a coach who he had a slightly different approach. He was much more soft with it in
Yep,
the sense that it was sort of athlete led, and he engaged them on the stuff that they wanted to understand, but on a really cerebral, really simple level, was really about understanding pressure and your body's
yep,
response to pressure
yep,
and stress, and
yeah,
sort of breaking it down into some really simple things that you can do as an individual. When you feel yourself get stressed or you feel yourself not being able to move on from a specific thing that happened in a game, and it's just like just check yourself, and once you do that, you can move on. And when it was explained to me that simply, I was like, yeah, well, obviously that makes sense, but it's just not something I'd ever thought about before.
yeah. And I didn't really have that complex understanding of things, but now, older and wiser, I feel like I do. But
Eh,
yeah, it just comes down to that as well. Like if you can't let go of things, you're just gonna that's gonna keep playing on your mind constantly. And I think that's one thing I am proud of, is that I can now highlight what is either bringing me down or what's stressing me out. So then if it gets that bad, I'll eliminate myself from it, because it's just for the love of the game. But it's just sometimes it can't be worth it, especially when mental health and stuff comes in
Yeah, and
and things like that.
I was the kind of I guess I started coming through the ranks right at the start of smartphones, iPads, and that sort of thing. So we
Not Instagram, Snapchat.
well, yeah, that's a whole different beast, isn't it?
Yeah.
But so we had access to a lot of our games, by the time we got home from the stadium or from the
Yep.
ground we played in, and I was the kind of guy, because I thought it was cool. I would sit up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, just watch the same game over and over and over again, and I would critique myself and critique my teammates and whatever. And
Yep.
then I'd get to training on Monday and wonder why I was so
Tired.
tired and sore.
Recovery, they say it, but you don't
Yeah,
really understand it until you got to
yeah.
do it.
Well, recovery when I was playing was just sitting that bucket of ice, like
Yep.
drink this
I
beer.
mean, yeah. I mean, I grew up with recovery from soccer just being in the car for 5 hours.
Yeah,
So
well, yeah.
when people started asking me to do like ice baths and all that, I was like, "Are you mad?" Like no wonder I was so tired going to school the next day for soccer, because just sitting in the car. And back then, like we had a limited amount of players. So at one stage I was playing 14, 16s, 21s, and then sit on the bench for first grade. And then my poor mum, she would travel home from Sydney and then be back at work at 7 a.m. on a Monday morning. And I'd whinge about having to go to school.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah, it
that
just puts a lot in perspective.
that's such a difficult thing too, particularly for those rural kids. And this this isn't just for females too. That there's a lot of good, male athletes out that way. I heard a story recently about a kid playing for the Raiders sort of under 20s crew out here, and they think he's pretty special. So he's still in high school. He's
Yeah.
doing a 12-hour round trip three
Yeah.
times a week. So they actually train every day, but he does his gym and stuff at home, and Tuesday night 12-hour round trip, Thursday night 12-hour round trip, and then Saturday or Sunday or Friday whenever they play, it's another 12-hour round trip. Like it's
Yeah.
tough for you country kids.
It's just that we don't see it as being hard because I guess we don't know any
Any
different.
better?
But
Yeah.
but I just remember all because where I'm from, Grenfell, so it's about just under 5 hours to Sydney, and I'd have to be there at like 11. So me and Mum would be up at like 5 a.m. Yeah, so I take my hat off to my parents, and I have this great respect for parents that will travel with their kids because sport just does so many things for kids. And coming from a country, you just have a different outlook of things. So
Yeah.
especially when you try and joke and tell them that we've got pet wombats and kangaroos and things like that, and you'd be amazed how many city people believe you.
Well, yeah, we're pretty dumb when it comes to that kind of thing.
Canberra's not so bad because it's kind of native, whereas Sydney, they're like, "Do you have Wi-Fi?" Like, yeah.
What's
I was like,
what's
Wi-Fi?
the internet?
Literally, yeah.
I
So
need to have a chat with my parents because the furthest they drove was from O'Connor to Tuggeranong, which is about
I was gonna say,
15 minutes.
yeah, come on, Mum and Dad.
Do you know what? That's actually not true. I reckon my dad.
Yeah,
Well, I reckon until I left school and moved and played overseas, I reckon he'd watched every game I'd ever played, and we played. So I went to school in Sydney, so he was driving up on Saturday 2.5, 3 hours to watch me play. We traveled around a lot. Some ACT teams. We were pretty isolated here, so we'd have to travel to
yeah,
Sydney or out to the Sunny West or up to Brisbane or
yeah,
down to Melbourne or Albury. We used to meet the Victorian kids in Albury. So there was a bit of that, but it certainly wasn't every week. I'll say
yeah,
that.
yeah. Funny that you say that because my dad never came. So I was always like, oh, he's just working sort of thing. And then as I got older, I just realized he pretty much just hated soccer. He just thought it was boring. But then I started playing rugby and he like came to everything and I was like, hang on a second. Like,
What's
so it was
going
really
on,
weird
Dad?
because Mum would be like answering the phone. She's like, yeah, Dad's on it. I was like, what's he doing here? Like he's normally working sort of thing. So, but yeah, we always had a little joke that he'd have to work and pay for everything where Mum would have to drive and she pretty much paid for it, having to sit in the car with me for so long. Mind you, I was the best sleeper in the car. It was great.
Yeah.
You'll be amazed
So
how many kids actually just sleep in the car.
yeah, and then you get home and you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. That was fine.
Yeah.
Slept for 5 hours. It's all good.
Yeah. I think I had like from Grenfell to Lithgow, I had down pat. I'd be asleep before the 80 sign. And then I'd wake up at Lithgow, have something to eat, and then get to Sydney and I'd be done. And then I'd go play soccer.
Far
So,
out.
yeah.
But I've certainly worked with a number of athletes now who, similar. They're obviously a bit older and they're doing that trip themselves. But you know, they'd come in, train Tuesday night or Wednesday night or whenever we trained. We were lucky that we had a couple of apartments that they could sleep in for
Yeah.
the night,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
often would head back in the morning for work. So it's a 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. wake up to get to
Yep.
work at 9. Get home,
Yeah.
have a shower, get to work. So you know, yeah, really respect the commitment there from a lot of those country kids, and with the added challenge for a lot of the girls without the we'd give some $50 petrol vouchers because that's
Yeah.
kind of all we could afford.
Yeah.
So you got to respect the hustle, you got to respect the grind for sure.
Yeah, and it's still happening. Like in the women's Brumbies, like we've got our captain Dunny. She's located in Narromine
Yep.
and stuff like that. So hers is a 8 hour round trip, and she's got 4 kids. So yeah, it's a massive, massive thing. And like at the end of the day, it's all still for the love of it. So, yeah, like you said, massive respect for people that travel. I think I travelled home after training one time and I hadn't done it for that long. I couldn't walk the next day. I was like, oh.
That's when you know you're getting old, right?
Yeah, yeah. And like things don't get sore until 2 days after. I'm like, yeah, I need to retire soon.
I remember back when we had the NRC, the National Rugby Championship. So I've been playing for the Tuggeranong Vikings, and that year I'd spent most of the year in second grade because we had a couple of Brumbies guys sort of on the up, so they were coming back down from the Brumbies, so I'd get bumped. So fuck you, Scott CEO, and your 80 Wallabies tests.
Damn, man.
And so I had an opportunity to play with the Sydney Stars. So I was in the Canberra Vikings
That's
squad,
right.
and
Yep.
I had an opportunity to go up there, and I still remember the phone call, Peter Playford. So it was a Sunday morning, the night before on the Saturday, I was in my Canberra Vikings gear, like my polo shirt and whatever, because there was like Ben Alexander, and they had plenty of props better than me. Like,
Okay.
we'll just put it that way.
Yep.
And I think the score was about 70-0 to us, to Canberra Vikings.
Yep.
And the Sydney Stars scrum was atrocious.
Yep.
And I remember leaving work. So at that time I was working at the Duxton. Shouts to Duxton. And I got this phone call from this number showed up on my phone. And normally I don't answer numbers I don't
Unknown
know.
numbers.
I just let them go to voicemail because if it's important, they'll
Yep.
leave a voicemail. But for whatever reason, I answered it. And it was this dude, Peter Playford, who was a former Brumby, fascinating individual, and still one of the most eccentric coaches I've ever played for. But I really enjoyed playing for him and have a lot of respect for him. And I can't share some of the stories he told us, but you know, like really meaningful for me. I guess it spoke to me more than some. But yeah. Anyway, get this call and he's like, Liam. I'm like, yep.
Yep.
So I understand, you're in the Canberra Viking squad, but I've already called Brad. He's sweet. Why don't you come up and have a crack with us? And I was like, who is
Who's
who?
this?
And he's like,
What do you play?
He's like, oh, sorry, it's Peter Playford. I'm with, I coach Sydney Stars, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then, he said, look, I can't, no guarantees, but come up, train Tuesday night, train Thursday night. We've got a couple of injuries up front. Tom Robinson was one of those who's now also a Wallaby prop. Shouts to Tom. And we'll see what happens, whatever. So I drove up, like, I was a uni student at the time. It didn't really matter. So I drove up to Sydney on the Tuesday, got absolutely smashed in this sort of fitness contact, like live scrummaging session. And I got to the end of it and I'm like, these dudes are definitely going to send me home. Like,
Yeah.
And in a way I was kind of hoping that was going to be the case because I was like, I got nowhere to stay tonight. Like,
Yep.
And then he's like, mate, come back Thursday. We got a game. We got a development game Saturday, so we'll have you playing that, and then we'll put you in the team for the next week. And I was like, oh, okay. So drove home, did the trip sort of 4 times that week, then spent the next month living on my mate's couch.
Oh, dear. We've all
and
been there.
and this is the fun. So we against all odds made the semi-final. We flew up to Brisbane. So we had a choice. He said, we can either fly up Friday, stay the night. You play Saturday, but then we've got to come home straight after the game. Or we can fly up Saturday morning, play the game, stay the night, and then fly home Sunday. 2 weeks prior, we'd lost to Brisbane City by about 50 points. So it was like we all kind of looked at each other. We're like, Pete, let's fly up Saturday because we figured we were going to lose. As it turned out, we pushed them right to the end. We did lose, but then after that game, I was like, well, I might as well enjoy this. Like I'll go out with the boys. I'll have a good time. I end up in the casino. Now I
Oh,
have $200 to my name at this point, and I went to the roulette table and handed my $200 over. Actually, handed my $200 over, and I got two chips back. Now, I'm so trashed at this point that I think I'm at the $10 table. I'm at the $100 table.
oh no.
So I put one down on zero and one down on 36 or whatever it was. Zero comes up, and I'm like, awesome! I just won $300. Like I'm high fiving everyone, and then the dude at the roulette table goes, "Mate, you just won like 3.5 grand," and I just went ballistic. Like, I went absolutely ballistic. I was like, and so then I roll. I get on the plane back. Kat picks me up at the airport in Sydney, and we drive home. And then like I was like, how am I going to explain, all of this cash in my wallet to Kat?
Oops.
So, moral of the story, kids, is if you're not getting paid to play footy, just let it ride. Whatever you've got, let it ride, and maybe you'll come home with $3,000. In the end,
Yeah.
my commitment to the Sydney Stars for 6 weeks netted me $3,000. So for a
Yep.
student, it wasn't bad.
Yeah. Especially the driving was definitely worth it when that came out. For
But
sure.
but I have to say the toll that 6 weeks took on my body, my back, my groin, hamstrings and calves, it was probably half a season, like into the next year. It probably took me half a season to get my body right. Just
Yeah, to recover.
all that time in the car, not so, like I was literally sleeping on a mate's couch because he
That's
didn't,
what you
yeah,
had to do.
he didn't have a spare room, but he was like, yeah, you can stay here and mooch off me. And then he was a teacher too, so he would take the kids out. He was like the outward bound guy, so he would take the
Hmm.
kids out. So when he left, I think he left for 2 weeks. I got to sleep in his bed.
Oh, yes. It's like heaven, isn't it? You're
Yeah,
just like, oh, I've got the house
yeah.
to myself. Then you feel like you're like rich as because you've got this house to yourself and things like that. And then you go back to reality and sleep on the lounge. Yeah.
But
But
that, like, to me, that was sort of the only time, and the NRC at that time was it was not professional. Like we weren't getting
mm,
paid. I think a few guys were getting maybe $1,500. Maybe that's
yeah,
what they got. I think a few guys in Canberra got maybe $5,000 for the commitment, but which is better than nothing. But and a lot of us were in the same boat. The following year is when we're like, well, I got to take 12 weeks off work because it's a
yeah,
full time commitment, and I'm getting $1,500 for it. Like, so
yeah,
that was always the hard thing with the NRC, and I understand why,
yeah,
but that I and so then coming into the women's game, like I had a pretty cerebral understanding of what you guys were going through, which is why I think, and you can probably speak to this a bit more, which is why I was always pretty understanding for you guys.
yeah. I mean, I think as well, like because you had that understanding, there was that transparency. There was you knew what we were talking about. Not so much the traveling or whatnot with me because I was living in Canberra, but yeah, and talking to the girls that did travel, they definitely appreciated how much you understood it.
Mm.
So as long as you're not getting tricked over and things like I used to try and trick you over with. um,
Yeah, there were
they loved it.
definitely some athletes who took advantage.
Yeah,
But that was also part of my development as a coach. So I got better at recognizing that, and then I came
yeah,
not in a not in a not in a rude way, but I became less lenient with some of
yeah,
those athletes, and yeah, some of them struggled a little bit with that. But that's a
yeah.
story for another podcast.
I think that's with everything though. I still get that with my school kids when I ask them to do something. They're like, no. And I'm like, too bad. You got to do
Yeah.
it.
Why? Because I said
So,
so, bro.
exactly. When I was a kid, I just listened to my adult. I bet you I didn't though. Like looking back, I
Nah,
probably didn't.
you probably think you did. Do
Yeah.
do the kids ever say stuff and you just want to burst out laughing, but you obviously know you can't? Like, is there ever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
all the time. And then like we did we did uh, uh like a retell on an indigenous name for a frog, and it was Tiddalik.
Yep.
Anyway, and me with the tongue twister, I went Tiddadick. Anyway, and then that's all they kept saying, and I was just like, oh no, this is so bad. And I'm like, it's Tiddalik, sort of thing. So their brains are sponges, and I say something, and then half an hour later I hear them say it, and I'm like, oh dear, no, don't say that, sort of thing. But yeah, they're funny. They're
It's
very funny.
it's amazing. Like, you know, obviously with my little man, almost 9 months old, the Ed, I guess, like a teacher, you get to see them every day, so you get to see what they learn, and the light bulb moments. Like, today I was just watching him. He started crawling up the stairs, and
Yep.
so there's a part of me is like, this is awesome. Like, I'm so proud that he's figured this out. And then the other part is like, now I'm going to have to put in these fucking baby gates to
Yep.
stop this little dude climbing up the climbing
Yep.
up the stairs.
Because that moment that you forget to leave it, no, but that moment you forget to close it is going to be when you hear the dunk dunk
Yeah,
dunk.
yeah,
So it's the same with my niece. Like my niece, she's going on 11 months now, and I didn't see her pretty much that whole time I was doing Super W.
Mm.
And just seeing how far she's grown, like now she's actually crawling and chasing me around. And, I had her standing up the other day and she's balancing. And I'm just like, every time I see her, it's just they've grown
It's
so much.
it's incredible how much development happens in the first 12 months of life, and
Yeah.
you obviously don't get to experience it unless you have little people in your
Yeah.
life, and even for my parents, they don't see him for 2 weeks and he's got 30 new skills, and he's
Yeah.
slightly bigger than he was before, and it's I guess it's really taught me to celebrate those little things and really live in the moment, because I got an older sister, she's got 5, and she's like, yeah, like, mine's 11. To me, he's still a little baby, he's still 1,
Yeah.
but now he's
Yeah.
11, my eldest. So yeah, and
Yeah.
I guess that's is that sort of the appeal to you of teaching, like when you see them, when you work with a kid and then you see that light bulb go off.
Yeah, it's definitely a proud teacher moment when that does happen. But for me, it's more the growth that I see at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So and being able to have that data and be like, okay, well, actually, I have done something.
Mm.
But I had a well-being light bulb moment with one of the students the other day, because this student had really terrible resilience,
Mm.
and I've been working with them and stuff like that, and something that she would normally lose her mind with, she's just like, okay, I'll do this instead. So that to me is
Big
better
win.
than that's better than an A, I think. So,
but
but yeah, it's pretty good.
but that was certainly the appeal to me as a coach. Like, I really enjoyed the light bulb moments. Like,
Yeah,
winning is cool. And to me, winning is for the players, and that's the reward that they get for for the all the work and sacrifice that they make, and sport's pretty cruel sometimes, they don't come. But
yeah,
for me, and certainly the group of coaches that I worked with, it was those light bulb moments, and being able, and again, like you said, being able to look back and reflect on a season or a period and go, well, there is actually marked improvement, and marked,
yeah,
with a strength program, you can see that progression. But when you look at footy, and then I'd go down and watch club footy, and I'd see a lot of what they'd been working on applied to the club footy field as well, and then the
yeah,
cycle starts again. So that to me was the appeal, and I guess that's why I'm so excited to be a parent.
yeah,
I'm sitting with him, and you know teaching him how to catch right now. So
yeah.
he goes all right. Sometimes the ball
Okay,
hits him in the
okay.
face.
Oh yeah, that happens to me too. I'm 30.
But
But yeah,
yeah, I certainly have a I hated teachers when I was a kid, hated school, but
same.
I certainly have a huge respect for what you guys do in and people always go, oh, you get so much leave and this and that, but it's a tough job. Like you're looking after 30 to 50 kids all day, every day. And then on top of that, you're trying to teach them stuff. You're trying to stop them from losing their mind.
Trying to get them to sit still. Like, you'd be amazed, mate, how many parents. I remember in lockdown, or it was last year before, and it was the very first lockdown, so it must have been the year before.
Yeah, 2020.
And yeah, I rang a parent because we had to ring these parents once a week or twice a week, or once every 2 weeks, sorry. And I had one of my really funny students. By funny, I mean wouldn't sit still, had me on my toes all the time. I rang his mother, and she goes, "Are they better in packs? I'm exhausted from him." Like, and I was like, "Packs? No." I was like, "This is one student." And like, it just made so much more sense to me that, it is needed, the teachers, for that rest, because the kids are feral. They're just sick of each other. They need more sleep. They are over trying to learn. There's arguments on the playground and stuff like that. But, and then that same student, like, we were on a Zoom call, and I was like, "Bring your pets for a day." I wanted to do something to get them excited. And he just spent the whole day, because he decided to bring his pet bird, and it let go, and he's just running around everywhere for it. So, like, it's just the moments that you'll just keep in your mind forever. Like, with the footy as well. Like, I remember when I was doing Aon 7s, my best mate, Sammie, we were both menaces. Yeah. Like, footy was the reason we are best friends.
Yeah.
And then, you guys it was an arranged friendship, I think. So,
well, no one else wanted to room with you guys
because we were so crazy.
Yeah, so I was the team manager of this team, and I guess that first year of the Aon series, none of us really knew
how big it was,
and what what the expectation was, and and like I just remember explicitly being told by Yasmin Meeks, who's now killing it with the Roosters, and had a really really solid crack with Australian 7. She was like, "I think you should room the two Samanthas together."
Yeah. And then by the end of it, though, everyone wanted to come into our room. Even Shani was like, "Put me in the room with them." I'm like, "Nah, no one wanted to be with us." Sammy Maxwell is an absolute crack up. Shout out to her. I miss her, but yeah, her and Josh got engaged. But
yeah, shout Sammy. And for what it's worth, Sammy, if you're listening, one of the really really special rugby brains, very intelligent footballer.
I learnt so much from her. I mean, I set her up for a loss more times than none. But yeah, her brain, God love her, it just, she has so much knowledge around that.
Yeah,
very, and
very
she's
special.
Just an all-round good human.
Great human.
So
but I'll ask you this question, because I ask everyone this question before I let you go, because it's getting late.
That's all right. I'm an ISO. I don't got to be anywhere.
Oh well, yeah, that's true. That's true.
You're the one that's got to go to work, mate.
Yeah. I got to get up and go to work.
Also, you got to feed your baby.
Yeah. Well, you know what? He's due for a wake up soon, so we'll wrap up.
All right.
But so just some advice, like anyone, any of the little girls out there who are seeing footy on the TV, seeing football, soccer, AFL on the TV. What advice would you give them in this world now where we've got so much push and pull on athletes, and everyone's time poor, everyone's got to manage a social life and work and school and all of that. What advice would you give someone who's sort of on this elite athlete trajectory and is maybe struggling with where they should focus their energy?
I think my biggest thing is to not give up. Whether you need a break or not, that's fine. Like, I know that I walked away last year, to have a break, and I came back better and stronger than ever. But I am also 29 and not 9. And it's just, if you're not enjoying it, try something different. If you're loving it, go as far as you can. And it's more about how you listen. The best advice or the best coaching I've ever been told is it's absolutely free to listen. It doesn't cost you anything. It can be done wherever, however, in the world, and to listen to what people are saying to you and the fact that they're going to try and help you. But you also need to, over time, you'll be able to highlight, what's good and bad. But in the past, I think it was this last 6 months, I also have a very special woman in my life, close grandmother, Granny Sue, we call her. She actually said to me, she's 70, over 70, and she still walks 3Ks a day. It's amazing. She said it's more about stickability. So to me, it's about 10% ability. It's 90% stickability. It's about, having them balances and stuff like that. And I think that quote has really stuck with me, because that's what I've done my whole life. I've got rejected from these teams and everything else, but I stuck it out. And when I kind of felt like I wasn't getting things from it, I walked away on a good note. So yeah, just to listen, to have fun, and yeah, if you're loving it, absolutely go for it.
I
And if
think
someone
that's
says that you shouldn't do it, do it. Just prove them
tell them
wrong.
to fuck off.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant advice, Sammie. Yeah, elite sport is full of ups and downs, and ultimately you have to love it.
Yeah. And if you don't, what are you there for?
Yeah, and I think that
Maybe.
I think that's just as important a skill, is to know when to walk away.
Exactly. And I've been going through a bit lately, and I've actually been, congratulated here and there for being able to highlight what is bringing me down, and this and stuff. And, it's easier to be a decent human being than being a sore loser, I guess.
Hey,
So,
it's true. Attitude, the way you listen, showing up on time or showing up early, those are all things you can control. Your
yeah,
work ethic, those are all things that you can control. You can't control if a coach or a selector doesn't like you, or
exactly.
your skill set doesn't fit their system.
Yeah.
That's not something you can control.
Yeah. And I guess because I was introduced to it from such a young age, I remember my dad took me to my first Western region trials for soccer, and I think I was about 11 years old or 12 years old, and I didn't get selected, and I was like, oh, that's fine, I'll just play in Grenfell sort of thing. And my dad was like, why didn't you get selected, sort of thing. Like, he was there, and the coach said to him, like, I don't think your daughter's got what it takes to make it. Anyway, and dad's like, so what do you want to do? Do you want to go to Macca's and have a burger, or do you want to go get a soccer ball and practice? And I went, oh, I'll do both. Like, we went and got Macca's because Grandpa doesn't Macca's, and then he brought me a soccer ball. So, I was introduced to that rejection from a young age, and my parents always said to me, it's up to you. If you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. And if I wasn't up ready to go to soccer on a Sunday morning, Mum surely wasn't going to take me. So yeah, I found that initiative. So
Yeah,
it just comes with time and age, and I tell you, there's a lot of people that you're going to get along with if you go play a sport that you both love.
100%.
So
And
yeah,
that for me, rugby, as much as I shit on it currently in its current state, and I do, but ultimately it's because I care about it. But,
yeah,
my network of people who, have been successful athletes are now doing really good things coaching, but also who've gone on to be fantastic, consultants and business people and business owners and that sort of thing. That and I can almost show up in any country and I've got a
yeah,
place to stay or I've got someone to have coffee with or whatever. So
yeah,
you're 100% right. And I think, for most sports, but, particularly global sports, that's the case. If you love it, you're going to meet some awesome people along the way too.
yeah. And just like, I hate on Facebook most of my life, but even just having the connection there, and like being able to see, I've got people all over the world as well. So it's just incredible to think how much you can learn off other people as well, and being able to listen, like I said.
Mm.
So
Well, Sammie,
yeah,
thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
not a problem, mate.
Enjoy ISO.
Oh yeah,
Get some sleep.
I'll go play some Fortnite.
You love that. Love that.
Yeah,
Love
I'm
that.
I'm all for it.
All right,
So
Sammy.
all right, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, mate. Bye.
Bye, mate.
Thanks again, Sammy. It's always good to chat. Uh, should do it more. You're welcome back anytime on the podcast. I don't have much for you at the bottom of the show here. Thanks for listening. Just do me a favor, thecover.com.au. Just get there. get on the newsletter, read some articles, listen to some podcasts. It's a nice little central hub for some up-and-coming content creators. It's awesome. And it's growing all the time. Stuff goes up every day. It's going to get to a point where there's multiple things going up every day. Different personalities, different takes. It's going to be really good. So just get in early, become an early adopter. Click on some ads. Click on some ads, because that allows us to fund a lot of the things we do. So do that. If you think you can do what I do, click on that Riverside one. Next week's going to be good. I'm gonna, as I said at the top of the show, I'm gonna table some of that WNBL stuff and do a really good, thorough deep dive and jump into it, and kind of hopefully, offer both sides of the argument. I have put in a request to the WNBL to speak to one of the decision makers. I believe that the ultimately, in my view, the buck should stop with the head of the WNBL. So we'll see. Even I've said, even if it's just I can ask 3 questions and then report back on this podcast. I don't need anyone on the podcast. I just have some questions. So I'll let you know how that pans out. Keep tuning in. Subscribe to this podcast. Get over to my Instagram, or the Instagram for this podcast, at Give 'em Liam. Buy some Matildas tickets. April 12th in Canberra. There's also a game up in Townsville. So any of my far north Queenslanders up there listening, buy yourself a ticket, or 5 or 10, whatever. Make sure you get to that game. Lydia's going to check back in with us in a couple of weeks' time. So I want to be able to tell her that I influenced a few of you guys to buy tickets. The Matildas don't play a lot in Australia. They don't get the opportunity to. So it's an opportunity to see a couple of the best players in the world, or best players at their position in the world. So make sure you do that. I will be back in 1 week's time, probably with some hot takes on the WNBL. So get excited about that. Subscribe. Do what you got to do. I'll talk to you soon.